Okay, guys, a lot of big news for the Buffalo Bills today. Number one, first and foremost, the most important one of the day, the big dog got paid. 6-year, $330 million, $250 million guaranteed, which is the highest guarantee of an NFL player ever. I think I can definitely speak on behalf of all Bills Mafia when I say Josh Allen well deserves. The general got his money. Nobody deserves that more than Josh Allen, so couldn't be more pumped to lock him down for 6 more years, and hopefully many more to come after that. Also had to cut Von Miller today, which honestly had to happen. There was no avoiding that situation. The reality is we signed a 32-year-old. It didn't end up working out because he got injured. If he didn't get injured, maybe it could have worked out. But Brandon Beane took a big swing on that one, on a 32-year-old, and it just didn't work out. Had to get rid of him today. But I will say that I would be open to, since we dropped him and now we have no financial obligation to him, if we could re-sign him, pick him up for like $2 million a year for like a veteran presence on the field, I don't hate that. But that is only if, and only if, we bring in another edge rusher and at minimum a Joey Bosa. Obviously, I prefer Trey Hendrickson. That's now since Myles Garrett re-signed with the Browns, which was the worst fucking news a Bills fan could hear today. God, today started off terrible with that news. Then it got a lot better with the Josh Allen news, but I cannot believe Myles Garrett is going to be a Cleveland Brown until he's 33 years old and not even whiff the playoffs unless the Browns drastically start changing their organization. They need a quarterback. They're missing a lot of pieces. Myles Garrett being out of the picture, I would prefer Trey Hendrickson as my first option. With 17 sacks last year, 17 sacks the year before that, 8 sacks the year before that, 14 sacks the year before that. This is the guy that you want for sure. But can we afford him is the real question. He's probably a little out of our price range, so for what Joey Bosa could bring to our defense and for the price he could do it at, I wouldn't hate a Joey Bosa signing. My thing about Joey Bosa is just seems like he's been falling off the last 3 years, with only 5 sacks last year, 6 sacks the year before that, 2 sacks the year before that. It just seems like Joey Bosa is on the decline, but maybe it's the scheme that he's in. Hopefully he can come back and get to a double-digit sack year if he were to sign with the Bills. But I would at least at the minimum want to bring on a edge rusher at that caliber, that level of being a disruptor at minimum for our line in order for us to re-sign Von Miller for a very small $2 million deal. And I doubt he would even do that. Maybe he would because Von Miller turns 36 this year, so it's very hard for me to imagine any NFL team out there paying him more than like $3-5 million a year, tops. And that's even kind of crazy for a turning 36-year-old who's coming off a major injury 2 years ago. It seems like it would be too much of a gamble for an NFL team to take. So I would be willing to sign Von Miller back on at a very low price for the veteran presence. But let me know what you guys think about that. But also extending Shakir the other day, Greg Rousseau yesterday. The day before that was Terrell Bernard. I love all these extensions with the exception of I don't know if I love the Rousseau extension. And tell me if I'm crazy, guys. Leave a comment, talk to me about this. Let me know if I'm being a little too harsh here on Greg Rousseau, but I know he's coming off of an 8-sack season, but it didn't feel like Greg Rousseau was coming off an 8-sack season. And I think that's because in the big moments, I didn't see a lot out of Greg Rousseau. In the playoffs, I felt like he was very quiet. He always has these sacks when we play these softer offensive lines, and they're games you don't even remember because it's usually a blowout. That to me seems to be the pattern with when Greg Rousseau does get these sacks. I don't feel like they're in these crucial moments in the playoffs. So to extend him for $20 million a year for 4 years, we're taking a gamble on that. And hopefully it's like Ed Oliver, and it's that kind of situation where Ed Oliver didn't have a big year with us until after he got paid. That was when, Ed Oliver had that 9 or 10 sack season the very next year. So hopefully Greg Rousseau has that effect. The problem is now Ed Oliver regressed last year. So he performed after he got paid and then went back to the old Ed Oliver. So hopefully he doesn't follow that trend, but maybe he will have better years ahead of him and is still developing and not at his peak yet, which is fair to say that he probably isn't at his peak. I don't know if I felt he was a priority to give an extension to and pay because there are other needs right now that I think involve bringing in players from the outside for the D line. We didn't give Ebenesa one, and there's a reason for that. These guys just have not really panned out how we would have liked. They're not being the type of disruptor that we want on our defensive line. So you got to think the next person to get paid is probably James Cook. I would like to point out that all these guys that got paid were quiet on social media. They didn't unfollow the Buffalo Bills. So I don't know, James, maybe take a page out of their book. Just saying. But no, I do hope we pay James Cook in the coming days. I think he deserves it. I think he's the last big signing to come. And then hopefully from there we can swing some kind of deal with an edge rusher, because we have to get an edge rusher. And I need Brandon Beane to be aggressive trying to get a veteran edge rusher. I don't want to just, go with the gamble of trying to draft in the first round an edge rusher, which we have not been great on in past years. We have been great in the mid rounds, as we all know. Brandon Beane is great in the 4, 5, 6 rounds. He drafts great, but he has not been good at drafting in the first round. He has not had the greatest luck with that. So if I'm Brandon Beane, I have to know this is the narrative out there, that I haven't drafted well in the first rounds in the last few years, the last 4 years at least. When you look at those last 5 first picks, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, Kaiir Elam, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver. None of those guys have been grand slams exactly. And not to put them down and not to lower their cap. I do think that they have potential, but so far they have not been those type of disruptive players that we would have wanted. So that's why if I'm Brandon Beane, I have to be aggressively looking what's on the market, who we can bring in that already has that veteran presence, already has that capability that can elevate everybody else on our defensive line. But let me know what you guys think. That's all I got for you guys this week. I'll see you next time. And as always, go Bills.